Alright, so I'm working on the next project on my 97 Mustang Cobra, and that is trying to get the top replaced. So I looked into getting just the upholstery redone. It was a little expensive, and I already had my parts vehicle with a nice top on it, so I decided to go ahead and try to tackle just removing the whole frame. So I had this one out. It wasn't really as bad as I expected. Here it is. As you can see, it's just in terrible condition. It's starting to leak. When I bought this car, this is the shape that it was in. And so there it is, all taken out. And now I'm going to go over to my parts vehicle, which is 98 GT, a Roush that sadly was totaled. And I'm going to start pulling that one off and show you guys how to do it. First thing we need to do is remove the seat, get that out of the way. These little buttons under here, you just slide your hand along, feel for it right about off center of the middle. There's the button, you just press that in. Same on the other side, that lifts up. You just push seat belts through. It comes right out. Set that aside. This will probably be sold later on because I don't need it. And then to get this out, all you need to do is remove this bolt right here and the same one on the other side, which is 10mm. Once you have those bolts out, you can pull the seat out. Now on the top, has these little clips where it hooks in the top, so you just have to lift from the bottom and then push up, and then this will lift right out. Once the seat's out, you'll have all these little clips to remove to get these inside panels off and out of the way. So there's one there, down there, down there, one down here, and then these two little ones over here. Same on the other side. And you never know what you'll find when you start taking apart a car. I just found this random knife from the previous owner. Pretty odd. So, I don't know, maybe you'll find a treasure. I like to remove these with a claw hammer. It seems to work the best for me, because you can just get in there, slowly pull out. And then it does the least amount of damage. If you so happen to want to reuse these, it's probably best to get new ones, but you could also use a flathead, of course, but this seems to be the easiest, quickest way to do it. With all those pins out, now you can get this plastic piece out of the way. You just give it a good tug and it'll come apart pretty easily. This down here will also come off. This kind of overlaps over top of it. No big deal. Once you get it partially out of the way, you'll need to remove this seatbelt bracket in order to give us access to get around and take all these bolts out, which is just one right here. This is a T50, so a rather big Torx bit. This is also what you're going to be using for the rest of these bolts down inside here and all that hold the frame in place. So you take that, the seatbelt bracket will come with it, and you can move this piece down on the floor, get it out of the way. Alright, so next you just pull off these two little trim pieces on both sides. When you do that, you get access to the screw here and the screw over here. And then one last screw down at the end of the corner. Once you get those three screws out on both sides, then you can move to the other screws in the trunk, and that lifts this piece of trim out. But you need to get these three screws on both sides first, and then I'll show you the trunk ones. Once you get all 6 of those screws out, you go into the trunk, and there are 6 more screws on the inside you take out to get that piece of trim off. Once you have all those screws out, this trim piece just lifts right out. As a side note, if yours looks like this, you want to make it black again, you can use the black to black stuff, restore it, while it's out, which is what I'm going to do with mine. On each side there are 4 clips that just hold the edge of the fabric onto the frame. You can just pop those out with a screwdriver pretty easily on each side. At this point, everything that you do, you either have to do or can do with top down, because it's just easier. Everything's more accessible. You have more room. But now we're going to have to put the top back up to get on the final bolts that are all on the inside and there. On either side there's this flap right here that's attached in the back with 1 torque screw. It's a T20, so you just gotta take that out on either side, and you can do that before you take off all these bolts just to kind of get it out of the way to access to these. Now that the top is back up, we can get to all these bolts in here. This is probably one of the most tedious parts of this job. Now, to get to these bolts, you just gotta pull the liner. It's right here. It's attached sort of around these bolts. So you just start on the edge and just give it a little bit of a twist, a tug, and it comes off. Not too hard, and exposes all of these nuts, which are all 12 point. So you're going to need a 12 point socket. It's a 10 millimeter. Now it's much easier if you have the attachment that goes to an impact, because there's a lot of these, and sitting here trying to get around all of them is annoying, but I mean, I'm using the socket, so have fun. To get the liner completely moved out of the way, you gotta detach these wires. That's for the defrost for the rear window, and these are just little plugs. You just gotta push in the little button, give it a yank. It's got one on the other side as well. And then you just gotta feed it down through the hole in this. Get that out of the way. We can now put the top back down so we have room to do our last few things. So the pump, all the lines go along with the frame. So you'll need to undo this plug right here, which is your power. It just has a little piece down here. You lift a small screwdriver, pop that out. And then this is resting on these little triangle shaped wedge supports here. So you just gotta take this and just lift it. And you can use a screwdriver to pry it up, make it easier, but this will just pull out of that frame. And you get all this free and the plug out, then you just gotta go along the lines. It has these little clips right here. They just pull apart. There's a few of them. And then they have a zip tie on either side. You just break that. So right down in here, there's this little spring-loaded wire that's hooked on. This is pretty annoying. You have to take some needle nose pliers or something and pull this off, unclip it, and then fish it through this eyelet right here. And then I just take it and hook it up here on something. Now the only thing left to do is to get these main bolts out, which these are T50 bolts. There's one there, one down there, one here, and there's 2 here. You can take either one out, I suppose, but I'm going to take the one at the bottom out because that one is the easiest one for me to just have the whole frame as one piece, dropping it into the next car. And that's the last thing you need is all those. Attach it from the frame, and then you can just lift this whole thing out. Alright, so I got the top in there now. You definitely need the help of a friend. Have one person either side to carry this from your donor car to this car. And just be careful, of course, with the pump. Set it on top. Make sure it doesn't fall off. And now that I set it in, we just got to do everything in reverse, starting with their bolts. So get those 4 main bolts in. and then these two holding the seatbelt bracket. And remember, when you put the pump in, it needs to go behind all this bracket in the liner so that it goes behind your seatbelt. So you're just going to have to lift up on the top a little bit to get some space and then drop the pump down in there. That way the lines can all run behind everything. Otherwise you're going to have them in front of the seatbelt and have problems. And then the hydraulic pump. Remember that it has these little feet on there. You're going to have to push down, and then it helps to get a flathead screwdriver. Press down on the top with that little cone to push it through while wiggling it back and forth on the bottom, and then it'll snap back into its holes. And then do all the clips for the hydraulic lines. One here, one over here, one over here, here, oh, forgot one over here. So two on each side and one in the back. And then your electrical clip down here. With that done, you can now put your new top up so that you can go inside to put all the nuts back on these bolts. As you can see, this is dirty, so I recommend taking just a damp cloth and washing this before you put it back on. Once you get all these tons of nuts back on, you can pull the liner back up, pop all these little slots back on, all the way around. Then you can put this little torque screw back on in here, and then pull the defrost wire back through the hole in the liner and plug it back in. With the liner in, you can put the top down for the rest of this. Next is putting back on these annoying little hooks, and then these 4 clips that hold the edge of the top on. And now you can put this piece of trim back on. Again, as a side note, I use this Meguiar's Ultimate Black Restorer on that trim before I put it back on, and as you can see, it makes a huge difference. So if yours is all faded like that, I suggest you do the same. To put that trim back on, remember, you just need to have that screw here, 3rd screw under the corner on both sides, and then in the trunk, those 6 screws. Now you can put these panels back on with the seat belts. And remember, there's just one large torque screw that goes in there to hold the seat belt back in place. The last thing you do before you put this plastic quarter panel on is to put these little trim pieces for the window in. Make sure you get the right side on there or it won't fit right. You can tell which is which because when you line it up with the felt side toward the window, there will be this little indent right here, and it matches perfectly with this little piece of trim because it clips inside there. So if you put it on there and it lines up to be the right size, you know you have the right size. And then once you get it in, see that little slot? It just pops right in there, and that holds it all together right. Next, get these pushed into place, which down here, you're gonna have these little pieces that need to fit into slots on the car. So make sure you get that lined up, push it in, and they should all just snap back into where it belongs. Now that they're both on, you just have to put those little plastic clips on here, which mine they don't line up quite right because of this bar, but there's one that goes here, 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 and then these two little ones right here, and one final one in the back right there. And then remember to put this piece of trim back on over this. You see it kind of clips into there, and then you just put it down, push it into place. Now lastly, you just have to get the seat in on the back. You just gotta line these up with the slots, little clips, get them in, push it down, and then put those two bolts back on either corner there. And the last piece of the seat, you just gotta put it down, pull the seat belts through, and then push down until you hear it click on both sides. And then you're done.